Okay. Let's call the April 5th Finance Committee meeting to order. If everybody could take a seat, we can get started, that'd be great. I'm well. You?
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm going to move the agenda around. We do have a guest tonight. We have Mike Zagler, who is the food service director for Chartwell's, and we need to go over the contract and ask for you guys to approve the contract for next year. He needs to be up early and back in for work tomorrow, so I really want to get him out of here. He's got to drive to New Jersey, I think.
South Jersey.
Well, New Jersey isn't that far. I checked.
Yeah,
So,
never.
Matt, could you jump? Keep going. Keep going.
Can we just mention one other change to the agenda before you start? We're also removing item number 3, and we're going to move that to the next finance meeting, the update on the stadium.
4 years ago, we went out for a bid for the contract for the food service contract as required by PDE and the National School Lunch Program. At the time, we awarded Chartwell's the 1-year contract. It's 1 year, 4 renewals. This 2017-18-19 will be the 5th and final year of the contract for the 4th renewal. As you can see, we would like to keep the meal prices the same, and they are giving us an operating guarantee of a deficit of $17,175. This deficit has been staying around negative 13,000, I think last year, or 14,000. And they're doing a very good job of keeping it only at that. I will tell you right now, if they were to take their management fee and their administrative fee, they will have to give much of it back to us right now because of the way we're running. This has happened now with the new school lunch guidelines and everything. We've been down and we've talked about this quite a bit. What I'm asking you to approve, our prices are on the high side and not medium side. Switch to the next slide. As you can see, we haven't changed prices since 2014-15, but we are still on the high side if you look at other school districts. And I'm not looking to increase the prices at all. That's one way we could reduce the deficit if participation stayed the same. Participation has been down because of serving sizes and whole wheat requirements and things such as that. And there's other things that we could consider moving on if you would like, but I don't really want to get into that discussion tonight. What I'd like you to do is say, yes, this is the 5th year, we will have to bid next year. And I think as we look at this, this is a good proposal for us. I'd like some feedback on that, and then we really need to address the high school free reduced lunch revenue at a future meeting. It's a longer discussion, and I think I need everyone to focus on that, and we have to come up to a conclusion there.
So let me be clear about that. So what Bob and I talked about today was this free and reduced lunch item is an important item, and we think that we can address this at the June finance meeting. Yes. Is what we said after we're through the budget process and things like that, so we can focus on that because that does need to be answered.
Yes, that's something that serves from this, but it affects our finances and all the numbers and everything like that. It does not affect the $17,000 guarantee.
So here's the struggle I have. And let me bring do something. So I'll stipulate that's not your teaching. Our loss will not be more than $17,000 a year. That's really what this means.
Right.
Our loss will not be more than $17,000. Yes. I want to make sure everybody understands. This contract in the past ran at a point where we used to have these contracts that said they would guarantee us a minimum of $120,000 a year profit. And we ran that way for many years. The reason I bring it up is that profit, every year we roll forward and forward and forward. And that's how we bought new dishwashers and new grills and new, whatever the French term is for some deep skillet thing that we bought. So that's where we went for. So I understand that our prices may be high. I understand that may have some impact, but I also need the board to understand that this also means that if we accept that it goes at a $17,000 a year loss, that we as the district will be paying for the replacement as a district as a whole out of taxpayers' money, not out of the money of people who use the service, but as taxpayers will be paying for the new skillet and the French thing and the dishwasher and all this stuff, not the people who've been using the services. So I'm not sure how I feel on it. I'm not sure how I feel on it either which way, but I wanted to, in the interest of fairness and perspective, put that out on the table. That is a discussion item. That
Yes.
Because now I distracted myself. But that's where we used to fund the stuff from. And so when we were building, we just looked at, we saw pictures from Doug of a tired kitchen. Well, that tired kitchen may have become more tired over time because there was no money to replace it. And we've been running at this deficit for a while now.
Yes.
Now, having said that, does their plan still include the $60,000 or $28,000, don't remember which, for a marketing person that's involved in the middle of this?
Yes.
So if they didn't do the marketing, then we would turn to, if it was $28,000, we would turn to an $11,000 positive.
Let's go back to that number. Right now, they're guaranteeing something that they're not sure that they can make. So
They
we
think
give
their loss is
that
gonna be
back.
maxed.
Yes, if we give that back, that's going back to making their contract more secure with us rather than that going back to us. I will put much more, a better presentation, I think, in June to show you the whole focus of it. Because the free and reduced lunch now, my understanding, and I'm going to tell you, I believe it's a legal requirement, not a moral requirement or anything, says that if you're offering free and reduced lunch to students that you're not getting state and federal reimbursement, other students cannot be subsidizing that. The general fund of the school district must contribute to it. Now, we've had this discussion and we get all around and we never come to a conclusion of what we should do about that, but it's about the tune of $124,000 last year. That's what it was. And right now, we have that deficit, this 124, because we haven't contributed from the general fund for last year. It's sitting out there too. So our fund balance went down, maybe 13,000 plus 124 right now until we decide what we're going to do with it. I don't want to get too much involved in this because this is going to get into a lot of discussion, but that is the requirement.
So what are you asking us for the next meeting?
All I'm asking you for is to agree that we can go with the $17,000 deficit and continue to move forward. The alternative to the last number. Yes.
I think you could also make a case that if we raise those prices much more than they currently are, we're going to lose money anyway.
Yes.
So they're already high. They've been.
Yes. But when you lose,
at a high school level, you can't get out of there for 6 months.
so when you lose the income, where does it go? I mean, what do the kids do for lunch then?
Mine brings them.
I'm packing lunch every night.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that. And I carry my lunch to work too.
Right. But I'm saying it's easier to buy. It's easier for a parent if a kid buys it.
And please don't as I say, I'm presenting it because I think it's appropriate to present a challenge. I'm not sure where I stand on it myself, but I think it's appropriate to present the challenge rather than just everybody nods and looks like we don't consider it. So that's why I want to present the challenge.
There is a feeling, and I'm not sure we would want this to, if the board would want this a public policy, but we're out of the school lunch program at the high school. That's the area that's profitable here. The elementary schools are partly profitable because they're small elementary schools and you have to have a staff to just run it, and it's costly to do that. The middle schools, however, we have a lot of constraints, so we'll be concerned with all that. If we get out of the school lunch program, we do believe that the middle schools will be more profitable. I'm not saying we should do that because then we could be serving things that people would deem as unhealthy or not as healthy. And we have a parent advisory committee that we sit with. We've mentioned this to them, and they don't want any part of it. In fact, they want us to enhance our offerings and make them more healthy. But the money isn't there to do that, so they always are having me push back on them and saying, it would be great if we could do all these things, but we don't have the funds to do it, and they get that. I don't know.
And it may not be profitable.
Yeah, I mean, the Chartwell's offers a whole grain waiver, which other districts around the country have looked into. You have to get it approved by the state, so it's something the district would have to submit. You do have to show a hardship, which I think we can definitely show. Our meal counts have been down significantly over the last couple of years. And it doesn't have to be for everything. We can kind of pick and choose. We could get rid of the whole grain pizza and go with a white flour pizza. We could go with white flour cookies. We could go with white flour bread, rolls. It doesn't have to be everything. We can make a decision. Maybe we'll just do the pizza and the cookies. And districts around the country have seen a significant jump in participation after they've installed this, up to 7%. Now I know it's a catch-22 because we had the regulations a couple of years ago. I know I spoke to Bob about it, and we don't want to feel wishy-washy like this was the policy before, but now we're going back. It is an option. The whole grain is a little bit more expensive than the regular flour, so if we want the whole grain waiver, we would be saving money on product and possibly raising our participation at the same time.
I'll tell you, we are not recommending that at this point. Our parent advisory committee that is responsible for advising us on menu and all that has said, we don't want that. So I want you guys to hear that without hearing, before you just hear from us that we want it, we should do it. So I don't want to feel like we're giving you a recommendation tonight, but that is, we could look at things like that if it's an issue and you really want us to look to try to improve the finances.
But that's our June discussion?
Pardon me?
That's part of our June discussion.
If you want it to be a committee, yes. If you even want it in entertaining, people sitting around might say, no. We need to be the focal point of health in the community, and you feel that way. And that's the way I think our parent group feels.
June was, what we were talking about with June is focusing on the free and reduced lunches.
Yes.
And how we're going to continue or not continue to fund that.
Yes.
But all we're here for tonight is to determine.
Yes,
That's right.
So when we start talking about whole grain versus white
Yeah.
at 9:30,
No, I agree with you. I completely agree with you, and that's why I didn't bring this up, because when we first sat down to do this, I was going to try to tackle everything, and then I backed off after I realized all the other things we had to do tonight.
well, unfortunately for you,
I
so
think
so I mean no disrespect to anybody that's here. Unfortunately for you, in terms of we've got 2 TAC meetings and you have things that you want and feel it's important for us to discuss. And
I think it's germane to the conversation. I don't want to belabor it, right? Sure. I think that's germane to the conversation, though, because we're talking about a loss compared to a break even or a gain. And if there's ways that we can do that, that's a balance. Because, I don't want to get into whether the school lunch program is viable or not, right? But it does put a lot of constraints in, and I hear about food just being discarded, right? So if we can offer healthy alternatives and not be in the program, that's something we should be discussing, particularly if it's going to help raise revenues, right? Because you see the difference, and we talked about this morning. Your delta is about $54,000 a year, it looks like, right? So there's not over your operating revenues in your
Mark and I went this year's numbers, so he understood the situation. So he knows, a lot of detail, more than we're going to bring out tonight.
Look, I was the negative person. There's a stop loss here, so it's not more than 17,000. So if you're going with that approach, well, I've been negative on it. If the answer is, I think what you're presenting is that's the worst case you want to present. So board, no, that's coming. You're presenting to us that further down the line, maybe in June, we can have discussions and maybe turn 17 into 5 or something by doing these week switches or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what you're saying. So the worst case presented tonight is 17, and that's what you're asking the board's opinion on this at that board meeting.
That's it. So we can add that to the agenda as well for June. So free and reduced lunches and how to implement some saving strategies from Chartwell's. Okay, so what you need is just kind of an idea that everyone's okay with putting this on the
Put
agenda.
on the consent agenda for April.
So does anyone here have an issue with having this on the consent agenda at our next meeting? Okay?
Mike, you can get out of there.
Okay.
I will.
You're welcome to stay. He's going to be some gracious.
No,
Could you go back? We wanted
New Jersey is that way.
That's in the back too.
Oh, the other one? Everyone?
Mr. Desko is here to help explain the fitness equipment. I'm going to try my best, and then
Didn't work out for you well last time.
you know. Right now, we went out and we bid for replacement equipment at existing high school fitness rooms and equipment for the new middle school fitness rooms. We received 5 responses to the bids. We based the specifications on Matrix equipment. That's the manufacturer. Matrix is the manufacturer. Our athletic director, there were teachers and everything involved, and they got strong recommendations for the Matrix equipment. The bid responses had one bidder with Matrix equipment, and all the other ones had all kinds of other equipment. We did, the athletic department, the phys ed department sat down, and one of the trainers sat down and tried to show why that other equipment was not equivalent. There were many different issues, but the complexity of it got to the point where we've been on the phone with Rob Cox and say what's most favorable for this, and we have a proposal we'd like to make. If we were going to do specs and not be able, everyone would respond, I'd tell you we'd have to get an expert to write specs. Because if you write a manufacturer down and then you go back, you're going to have to get an expert to be able to exclude companies. Well, that's my belief, so we spend more money. What we are suggesting is rejecting the whole bids. We talked to the company that did this, and they're also a CoStarz vendor. And the company that did it under CoStarz, it would be $304,000 if we went through CoStarz. They will give it to us for the bid price of $196,000. So we would like to reject everything, go through CoStarz and purchase it. Now you say, where is it budgeted? The high school replacement equipment, because it is not part one of the projects, is coming out of the capital reserve, which is the $3 million. The middle school is $38,000, and that would come out of the capital projects as part of their furniture, fixture, and equipment. They never had a formal fitness room before, so this is putting it together for them. I'm looking for you guys to say, yes, you're in agreement on one way we're handling this, and that we could fund it out of these 2 areas.
Any questions from anyone?
that's, Rob is fine with this.
Yes,
I'm good.
So the 196,
yes.
that was, whose bid was that? Was that one of the, that's one of, they're all disqualified.
Yes,
Was that the same fellow who is now going to sell it to us for 196?
yes, and he's a CoStarz vendor. We could have not been bid it, and one of the CoStarz, that's what his price would have been.
Right. Well, because I don't understand, because you didn't provide us with the bids. The mix of, is it equivalent, is it not? Just so I have an idea, what kind of number did they get down to when they went through
The other
the
one.
non-compliant responses?
The bids range from 180 to approximately 180 to 200,000. So it's a $20,000 difference between the 5 bidders.
Okay, so you're really talking about a $16,000
I think
difference.
the lowest
Okay.
one had 5 different manufacturers, all with warranties all over the place. It would have been,
So it's $16,000 for the, so it's $4,000 a building. That helps me understand.
yes.
That just, I'm trying to understand, because if the other guys are coming at $52,000, then I would want to know where I'm spending 146, but we're 144, but you're not.
My understanding is the major equipment is Matrix. They have their own manufacturer warranty. That's what we'll deal with. These other guys, you could be going to, well, the dealer who sold it to us is gonna add this warranty on, and the manufacturer has a 2-year warranty. It was gonna be crazy and not, well, go ahead.
Barry, can you just talk about why the ADs and the other folks involved wanted the matrix equipment over the other ones?
Yeah, so we selected Matrix as the starting point for the equipment that we were bidding. It was because of the number of schools within Pennsylvania that they provided equipment. We had great references. We checked with Westchester, we checked with Central Bucks, Downingtown. I can go through a list within the PA. So they had contacts at AD's meetings, league meetings, et cetera. And everybody had spoken very positively about that equipment, both the installation, the service, the ongoing, upkeep of that equipment, how long lasting it was and the performance of it. So we bid that for equivalent. That was the starting point. We were fine considering an equivalent. The only equivalent that we were really able to measure against that made any sense in the bid that came through, we sat down with people that, that Bob had spoken to, the athletic trainer, both athletic directors, coaches, phys ed teachers, the coordinator for the phys ed department, and compared side by side what we could. And clearly they went to the matrix for a number of reasons. It was more suitable for special ed students. It was a single provider, so that when they have to do the annual maintenance, they could ask somebody to service this matrix equipment rather than 6 different manufacturers, those kinds of things. So that's why they suggested that we stay with the matrix.
Okay, thank you. So the question is, does anyone have an issue with how this bid was handled? That's the first question, right? And everyone's okay with that? And then we're putting that on the agenda for the next meeting also, Bob, is what we're saying? Okay. Anyone have an issue with that? Okay. Moving on.
You can go there.
You're dismissed.
Well, I'm not gonna get caught like I did the other night when, I didn't have answers. Okay, let's go back.
Where would you like me to go, Bob?
All the way back, we're gonna start now.
You're only starting now.
Here?
Right there.
Yeah, go keep going. What discussion item is good, yeah. Okay, we did the fitness equipment, and we did the food service proposal. We're not gonna do the stadium sign update, but we're gonna go into the preliminary budget. We still have to do the property repository sale, and then a independent auditor selection. So,
Can I just ask a question, Bob? Do you want to just knock those two out and be done with them? The independent auditor selection, and property
well,
repository?
Christine's my other guest.
Okay, it's fine.
We're good because the auditor selection could end up getting into discussion, and I gotta explain the repository sale. So I'm just thinking that it's better to get through these rather than get caught and doing the year for.
I want to see it before 9:30.
Okay,
If you'd stop talking.
Stop listening to them.
okay. We're gonna start with the staffing overview. Christine is gonna go over the numbers for this year, and we have historical numbers in there so that board members that, aren't familiar with where we've been and where we are now will understand what is going on. The historical numbers are actually something that Mark asked to add this morning just because he wanted a historical perspective and wanted to make sure that people were aware where we were. So go ahead, Christine.
Okay, so the first slide that you see shows this year against last year's staffing numbers. And you'll see as you look at this, it's broken out into our 3 main groups, which is our professional staff, our support staff, and our administrators. There is an overall increase from last year to this year of 2.5, and as I go through the slides, I'll go into more detail about that. Here's a historical look that it is important that we pause and take a look at. Our staffing numbers over the last several years have held steady. You'll notice back in 2011, there was a reduction of 57 FTEs from our budget. Now, about 7 years later, we're still 51 staff members or FTEs below that, where we were back in 2011. So the overall picture is to show that we have not grown since the time that we made that big reduction in 2011. We have stood fairly steady. In 2016-17, there was another group of reductions where we had 36 FTEs that were reduced. In the 17-18 school year, anything added was very conservative, and also some additions were made based upon contractual obligations and policy obligations, such as when enrollment reaches a certain number, we have to add a section, and when our student enrollment reaches a certain number, we do have to provide clerical assistance. So you see a conservative trend through the years. This is some additional information. It refers back to the slide before to show where additions and where reductions were made. There's a slight bubble back in 2013-14 where we did have a transfer of entity from IU of our speech and language program. But again, showing a conservative trend, not very minimal additions throughout the years. This is a closer look at this year's budget. On the professional side, we're only seeing a 0.4 increase from last year to this year. How we get there can be somewhat confusing. We did have 2 tech integration specialists that were added last year at the elementary level. The decision to have those at the middle school this year and not at elementary makes this a 0. So instead of 2, it's 0. There is a need in the upcoming year for an additional 5.6 special education teachers. Those are needed at the Achieve program and also at the secondary level due to the numbers of students that require services.
Those actual teachers or are they?
FTEs, everything that I'm talking about today are FTEs.
So are those members of Prescott or Korea?
This is Korea.
Okay.
There was a Spanish position added in July of 17 due to enrollment, and also 2 elementary sections in June of 2017, also due to enrollment. We contract our teachers very conservatively, so 0.6 of that has already been absorbed back. We did reduce 7 total FTEs on the professional side due to the consolidation of the middle schools. So you see, we're not jumping up high at all to the 0.4. On the support side, we have a similar picture. There were 4 instructional assistants added to the Achieve program last year, a 0.6 in clerical support. That is contractual based on student enrollment, and those are our reductions on the support side as a result of the consolidation of the middle schools. So again, a small variance here from last year to this year. And on our administrative side, this year, we have the administrator on special assignment, which will be a 1-year assignment, a new assistant principal that'll join us over at Holland Middle School. It's actually going to be, the opening will be at Newtown Middle School. That changed just this week. And an 8.5 business administrator who will work with Bob before his upcoming retirement. So we have a 1.5 addition there, with the 1 position being a 1-year assignment.
Actually, the 0.5.
The 0.5 also.
Yeah.
It's net 0.
That's right.
Okay. Any questions for Christine? I'm going to let her go.
I want to talk about the elimination of the elementary tech specialists. I'd like to see those positions stay. I don't know what that means because it took them a long time to get up to speed this year in a new position. And so we have 2 now, we're just moving the 2 to a different level. So if we were to keep them, maybe we're talking about the addition of just 1 other person to cover 8 grades, 9 grades, kindergarten. I mean, I just think there's tremendous momentum that was made there, and I think the progress is lost without that support. I think that was clear. It was clear to me in that presentation. So, I mean, if we could have 2 at the elementary and 2 at the middle school, great. But if the compromise is maybe 3 to handle the broader scope, I don't know.
I agree with Denise. I really strongly support keeping the 2 at elementary. I mean, what they've accomplished in this first year is remarkable, and I don't want to see us lose momentum. Having made the investment in Chromebooks, I don't want to see us lose that momentum. I think those 2 positions at elementary are really vital.
I'm already on record, so.
So my challenge is where you're gonna make up the $280,000.
I don't know. That's the.
I'm pulling it off my ear, but everything all said, it's about $140, $140,000 feet, I would guess.
I'd say it's 100.
Well, I'm saying it may not have to be
Whatever.
two more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one more, but I mean, that's the challenge, right?
I think we kind of knew walking in here that there was support for that. Mary Ann reached out to me earlier. I heard you guys talk about that. Let's go over where we are right now with the budget. And then we're going to have to prioritize things because we're not in a terrific shape right now in the budget. So you should hear the whole thing and then we'll talk about it and set our priorities based on it. And Christine is aware of that also. So,
I mean, I think there's an element of trigger here that if you get below a certain number, then it, well, what, at what point, when you look at what the numbers are.
Right, but it's a discussion about what are the priorities.
Well, this goes to my question, which was on the addition of the special ed for the Achieve programs. So how many special trucks, how many teachers are in the Achieve program? How many students are in the Achieve program? What's our ratio required to be, and what's the functionality there of a CRESPA member, a support staff member, working with those students versus a CREA member? Because that would say.
we have 4 special ed aides also.
I
I
understand.
think a couple of them are going to Achieve also.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand, because if I look at it, if I trade 3 teachers out for educational assistance, I've got your money for your other thing. I don't want to rob Peter pay Paul. I don't want to diminish the services provided to the population that needs services. I just want to know what the incremental differentiation between the support staff and what's the delivery service of the teacher there. Because I could pull out 3 teachers, put in 4 support staff and still save money.
Yes.
So much of that would be dependent on each IP though, wouldn't
Well,
it?
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I can provide you with what Chuck gave to me to bring to the meeting regarding Achieve. So it'll be a little bit red because I'm going to be.
I did that.
Yeah, because I did want to be able to answer the question. So what Chuck shared with me is that there are 10 new students coming into the program. So that gives them over 40 children in that program, and they need 2 additional teachers to allow for coverage and support of the growth. And then he goes on to say that we have a high number of 8th graders with IEPs moving into Council Rock South, and a similar large size class going into Council Rock North. He is currently looking at all of the data to ascertain if there is any ability for him to come down from the 5.6. But as of right now, that's what he's seeing being the need based on the IEPs at the high school, both north and south, and the additional 10 students in Achieve. So I think
Can you flip back to the slide? Because I think my question was prompted by, okay, because I asked about special ed, I was told it was Achieve. So I thought it was almost exclusively Achieve when I asked the question.
So it's 2 for Achieve, 3.6 for the high schools, where Chuck thinks he may be able to have some reduction is possibly in that 3.6 for the high schools. I think the 2 at Achieve are needed in addition to the 4 support folks due to the increased students going into the program.
And I hear that, and I was under the impression from the conversation that it was a much higher number going to Achieve, which seemed odd to me because the program wasn't expanding that rate to take 5 more. 2 more, I understand. So that's where I'm just trying to figure out in my mind where we're getting. All right. Thank you for everything, Chuck.
Thank you, that only can.
Maybe this is a out of the box kind of stuff, but back to the technology, the 2 technology pieces. This seems right for me, for some outside funding. Have we looked at any outside funding for these positions, whether it's through the Education Foundation, through a local, I hear about Apple helping public schools and other technology.
Verizon just had an ad that they did with
So
That's it.
those grants
are awarded based on the population of free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
And because our population is less than 3%, we don't qualify for any of those grants. My first few years here, we applied for all kinds of grants, and we got.
I understand that, but we do have an education foundation that gives some tax benefits to people who contribute to it. So I think we should at least explore that avenue to see if we can find some. There may be a benefactor out there that we're not even thinking of, right? So we can put it out there. If we want to fill these two positions and it's not in the budget, let's look outside to see if we can fill it elsewhere.
To your point, as you say, and just freewheeling for a second, we have technology companies based in this town, in Newtown in particular. And it is interesting when we go to the EIT, what's it called? The earned income? The other one, that they can give the money direct to the EITC. Because there's, you talk about outreach, we were going to talk about science, we're not talking about science. There's an outreach, which is actually a fascinating outreach, which is actually to see if we can get the people who do technology to do that, because if they did that, they could route their taxes to us. And it's in line with what their corporate goals are.
I look at it and I'm wondering, I understand what you want to do, I'm just not sure where the target is for us to go out and do this. And how I reach out, what type of outreach would be. It's not going to be a foundation, I don't believe, or anything like that, unless it goes through our foundation.
Well, here's what we want to do is we want to first determine if there's a desire to have that conversation. Bring money in from the outside, right? And then we can, whomever wants to be involved in working on targeting those individuals, I'm willing to bet in a short conversation with Gail, she'll have some kind of ideas. Jerry has some ideas about people in the community. We can just ask, right? There's nothing wrong with hearing no. And sometimes we get yes, and $280,000 is not a lot of money to some people, right? Especially when it's an offset of sending it to the Harrisburg or directly giving it back to our community.
Actually, we should talk about that here, because the answer is the two women who presented to us impressed us. I mean, I think that nobody here shakes their head no when I say that. That if we get the people together, I'm just working on the technology end of it. You just get the people on the technology end of it to come into a breakfast and let those two ladies present and then describe the EITC end of it. Then you've got a, what?
No, sorry, I started interrupting.
No, that's pretty much
They may have some ideas. There's two ladies also. They may have some ideas that we don't know about. So, if people are open to it, let's explore it.
Never seen Bob say no to money.
You should see him when you give him $25,000 on a check that's this big.
We should be clear though, we're not asking Bob to.
No.
No.
I see you starting to.
No.
Well, I'm just wondering what my first move is.
Right.
And I just don't know what it is.
I think you're carrying forward the notion that the board would like to see at least one. And then the question that's coming here tonight is ultimately what makes the final cut, but is there a way to dull the delay?
The only thing I would ask someone in the administration is to make first contact with Gail to start the process. So whomever that is, let's just start having the conversation. And anybody on the board or anybody that wants to be involved, let's at least have the conversation. We may come up empty, but at least we try.
Thank you.
Remember where you want?
This is it, yeah. Okay, I will tell you that in my career, it always seemed like after the first draft, the numbers would come down. Well, unfortunately, they're coming down just because I'm making a move that I'm not happy I'm making tonight, or suggesting that you guys will be able to determine what it is. Let me go through this sheet, and this is really going to tell you where we are right now. You go to page F3 of the first draft of the budget, you will see that number, that's our revenues. Based on what I have now is we had an increased revenue for state share of FICA retirement for 1.6 FTEs. We originally had 4 FTEs for special education, and then it's my understanding that the high school did their scheduling, and they needed another 1.6 FTEs for special education at that point, and that got added And all that is the state share of the expense of ours. So that's half the Social Security and retirement for those 1.5. A state share retirement for IAs I also added at 17,000. And then there was an error where we took one instructional assistant out, and that's the adjustment there. So our revenues were increased by $36,000, and that's only half of the expense we added, if you think about it. That's where that came from. The original appropriation I put in for MVIT was from their budget from back in November. Their new budget came out and it increased it by $53,000, our contribution. And what that is that our enrollment to MVIT is going up, while some other school districts' enrollment is going down. So we're paying a larger percentage of the operating costs. This is probably an 8% increase over last year, but that's not just because their expenses went up. Their expenses went up like maybe 2.5 or something. That's because our enrollment's going up, other people's enrollment's going down, so we're just paying a bigger percentage of that. So that's $53,000. I have looked at the budget, and we're going to talk about this at length, but I wanted to add $600,000. I wanted to add $1 million to remember the debt service to prepare us going forward and not to use as much fund balance. I've taken that out because that can't be a priority this year with all the additional staff that we've put in here. Originally, I told you that we were going to have savings because we were cutting staff because of the closing of the middle school, but now we're actually adding staff. The 1.6 additional special ed professionals, $89,000. Their benefits are $82,000, so that's 1.6. Reduction in the full-time instructional assistant salary, $25,000. Benefits, $37,000. And people will look at me and say, how can their benefits be more than their salary? Well, if there's family coverage there, plus the retirement, we're paying actually more for their benefits than their salary for lower paid people. And then I missed, for people I had to add, I missed benefits for the instructional assistants, and that was some retirement, and it was different benefits. It wasn't just health benefits. That's $132,000. In total, the additions and deletions, I'm reducing the first draft appropriations by $304,000. It's bringing our appropriations down to $240,634,000, and that is making our revenues, our expenditures, about 4.7 over our revenues. Therefore, that's the deficit that we're looking at right now. Go ahead. I'm just showing you, this is the same slide you saw last week or last month about why we need to have a tax increase, the full tax increase. And it's the same reasons I gave you before, but I took this one out because I was hoping we were going to be able to make that, but we won't be able to put the $600,000 in debt service, I don't believe, without having to cut other things that I don't think we should be cutting. I still am concerned about the elimination of property taxes, which, if you watch the commercials for governor now, there's one guy that's guaranteeing it. And that concerns me a lot. And you notice the year of the election, you don't hear about the deficit anymore or anything. It's almost like it's gone. But next year, you know for sure you're going to hear about the $3 billion deficit. So those are things that I'm very concerned with. And that's where I am with that. I'm just showing you the calculation for real estate taxes. I just want to show you this. You saw this before. It's in the budget book and all that, but I wanted to show that. Go to the next slide. Also wanted to show you this. If you remember, when we had 600,000, the blue is the budget, and that was over the red line. So therefore, we weren't using fund balance. Now that I took that out, all the way through here is our actual debt service is higher than our budget. So through 2024, we're estimating that we're going to have to use $2.7 billion of fund balance now. It also tells me that what's included in here is about another $10 million bond issue next year to be able to finish the middle schools, which that's really on already. I mean, that's already here, and Wrightstown and Rolling Hills. So those are the three projects that are funded in here. But it looks to me, if we would use all that money in those projects, we're probably not going to be able to borrow again until 2024. So that's going to put off any future projects moving forward as we sit right now, unless in these years we take some tax increases to fund debt service. Does everyone understand that like we did it before? Okay. As we talk about where we're going to go with the tax increase, I just want to put some statistics up here. This is the increase in mills. This is our current millage. So if we didn't increase taxes, we'd increase revenues by $950,000. And you may say to me, that's not exactly the number you have on the front page. It's because of the collection rate and the way the state makes me calculate things. You see that I have to go to the fourth digit here. The state won't let me round to the second digit anymore. It's making me round. So that is making this number, when we look at $141 million, $50,000 or $60,000 means nothing when you look at the numbers that big. So I just want to make sure you understand. I know that. So with a median assessed value, we would get, without raising taxes, we get $950,000. The median assessed value is $38,500. No one would get a tax increase. You see what I'm showing there? Same thing here. If you go up to 0.5% in taxes, that's the number of mills. That's what the revenue would bring in. And this is the effect on the average taxpayer, all the way to $113.86 if we go the full amount. Also, I wanted to show you that our fund balance in 2011 was 27.9 million, went up to 29, and then it dropped, and now it's at 24 million. I do believe that our fund balance is going to go down again this year. Last year, if you remember, our salaries and benefits were 0.16 under our budget, very close, so 1.16% under. I am concerned this year right now that we could be a little above that. And there's a lot of reasons why I feel that way. It isn't something that I know exactly, but at this point I am concerned with that. So that's an indication that we're not going to have a big variance in my mind between expenditures and budget. And that doesn't lead me to believe that I'm going to be making $6 million because I have off my expenditures by this much and revenues. So I do think it could be a tight year. Go ahead back now. Matt, I just want to go to the summary sheet. Back to the summary sheet. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about this? You see where we are right now. The board meeting this April is when I'm looking for a preliminary budget. I would like to make all these adjustments in our preliminary budget, show a deficit of $4.7 million, and move from there, but I'd show the full tax increase of 2.4%. We will need to cut $400,000 there, $300,000. I'm hoping $400,000 there, but we've already cut buildings and grounds back to zero, so I don't have any low hanging fruit like I sometimes have. We've already cut some extra money out of Matt's budget. I don't have any of that there. If you ask me where there's, and if you remember our spreadsheet or presentation last month, I showed you where the big increases are. There is some increases in district-wide instruction areas, which is a lot of curriculum things are being purchased. So there's some money there, but that's all on education. So we really gonna have to sit down in cabinet and look at the priorities of the district on what we're gonna do to get it down. I'm not comfortable with keeping it at 4.7 million right now. I will look at revenues, and I will be real honest with you. Last year, our earned income tax went up unbelievably. If you remember, 11% it went up, and it was like $18.3 million. I still only have it $17 million. But I've also showed you where earned income tax went up, and then the next year it dropped some. So I don't want to get caught where, especially earned income tax, where I'm putting in some number that we don't get to, and then I got to start backing off of it, because that's a number that's up to the future budgets when we know it's there. So Matt, I want to go to back to the very back, and this is what I want to ask you. Here it is. Is there support for the following? Maintain a 2.4% property tax for the preliminary budget. Maintain adjusted appropriations based on previous slide. Administration will begin to reduce appropriations or adjust estimated revenues to reduce deficit of $4.3 million. I'd like to know other comments or other thoughts in regard to this. I was really hoping that this year we were going to be able to deal with debt service moving forward and errors for moving forward, and I just don't think that we can.
Quick question, Bob. Can you go back a couple slides here where you show that one?
Yeah.
So I appreciate this, by the way, because I don't know if we've really had this in the past. If looking at what if it's 1.5% compared to 2%.
He didn't ask because I had this before then. But I knew he was the finance chair, so.
So and I'm just throwing this out there. If the board settled at 1.5% as a tax increase, how would you address the remainder? Have you had a conversation about that?
1.5%.
Yeah, I just threw a dart at that.
Yeah.
Right. So
go
ahead.
We're going to do our best to cut $300,000, $400,000 off. I don't believe we're going to do anything to start reducing staff or anything like that. So I would tell you, once we get what we can get out, we're going to have to use fund balance.
So the answer really is, if you want 1.5 instead of 2.4, that number, that's pure terms on the last page, we're going to add 1.4 million to that 4.6 already. So
Yes.
that deficit would then be 4.6 plus 1.4 would be $6 million deficit.
Yes. And that will assure that we reduce our fund balance. I would tell you by $2 billion before you move any money into capital. And I don't think that's the thing to do financially, but.
And then we're not set up, so then we're really not set up in the future, because when you want to do that $10 million issue next year, if we needed to cover that with taxes, if we needed to cover that,
We got to make that up first.
we couldn't make it up with the tax increase that will be allotted to it under PDE next year in all probability. Not going to go huge, so we'd be committing to make that finance, which covers some of the items we looked at in the first 4 hours of our meeting tonight, with money we don't have.
So that $4.6 million deficit you showed
Yep.
on the very first slide, you've built into that 2.4%
Yes.
tax, all right, it's already in there.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so that's why it becomes 6, and you go to 1.5.
I was saying going to 2.4%.
You just had all 4.6 back.
Yeah, no, okay, no, all right, never mind, okay.
Yeah, I'm concerned with that. We're trying to maintain the program. I mean, when it's special needs and these count kids, I think that we're going to need to keep a lot of them in there. Unless there's something I don't understand or don't know.
Well, see what's personally most. I don't know how we make it work without teaching. I'll have to make it work, but I don't think it's easy at this point. Just so we're clear on the pattern here. I'll preliminary, she hasn't been through. We can do the preliminary at 2.4, come in lower later. If you manage to cut it, we could drive you with a whip and a chain.
Or you can just say, don't cut, and we're going to use fund balance. And I got to tell you, then I'll go back to that slide again where I always show you increase taxes for 3 years and you had a 12%, 8%, and 5% tax increase. And with
We
the
can't
Act
do
1
that.
index, you can't do that.
But that was straight, we did that in the early 2000s. We have a couple zeros and we did 12% tax. Because we could do it. That's not open anymore.
And I will tell you that, who knows if we're gonna have property taxes in 2 years. If you hear what's going on at the state level, they're looking at that, and then we don't control the budget. The state tells us $144 million or whatever in real estate is, the state's gonna tell us, this year you're gonna get 143 million. And next year, maybe we'll give you 145 million. That's what's gonna happen. We're not even gonna have control.
So what you need from us is just some kind of idea of where we're going with the 2.4%, and not
Yeah.
really if we agree necessarily with the 2.4%, or we just are comfortable with that discussion. Am I characterizing that right?
Yes, and then we have to get through the preliminary budget to get to the final budget, so this is something that we have to do. We can't start counting the clock to even do the final budget until we do this. So I'm hoping you say yes, move forward with it, and then you can say, but, and that's what I'm kind of, your thoughts or comments, I'm kind of wanting to hear your buts. And if you're going to say, but this is what I expect, then I just want to hear that. We will have another finance meeting in May before we even consider a final adoption. So I will be bringing everything to you, and we're going to prioritize things for it.
Or we can add another finance meeting if we have to.
Yes, of course.
We have to meet.
On a different night in the facilities.
At one point, you talked about a budget forum on the 19th of April. Is that happening?
That's our board meeting.
Yeah, we were gonna have it before the board meeting if you guys wanted it. It depends on the public outcry and everything. The last meetings, if you remember, you guys sat behind me and I talked through the screen and there was.
I'm just asking because it was in my calendar, so.
Well, we just put tentatively, and that's what we thought, and you didn't have to come out with another night if we did it.
Nancy is there every year.
So if we, what I'm hearing is if we said no, zero, and I'm not saying 0%,
I know.
0% tax increase, you're looking at a $9 million deficit. Or closer to 10. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
no, I understand. Trying to get your heartburn, but you only got halfway there just with the pedal on the floor as far as you can. Yeah, okay. I don't see how we get there either.
Wait, I'm a little unclear in that. So go back with that, because you're showing a $4.6 million deficit.
And he's adding the 4.6 that we're not getting in revenues, so.
But that isn't your deficit after the 2.4% increase.
No.
That 4.6 is with the increase.
That column that starts at 900,000, that's revenue.
I get that.
So that,
Understand that.
on the other chart, we have $4.6 million shortfall now,
4.7.
$4.7 million shortfall now. So
If you take that revenue out that I'm projecting,
that is,
He's projecting that.
It's just a coincidence that they're both.
I'm sorry, I didn't, when you were talking about, I didn't realize that increase in revenue was already baked into this, the adjustments.
That's why I was making the point, Mark. I mean, because it was.
yeah. I should have put on the bottom of this includes, and I think I had it on the last slide when I did it last month.
right. So then if you go to a zero, it becomes the 4.6 you got here.
And 4.6 more.
And a little less, million less, so it's 3.6, 3.7 more. So you come up
Oh, that's right.
eight or 8 million short.
Okay. I just making sure.
Well, so what I'm gonna wanna know is if this board passed a 2.4% property tax increase, we still have a 4.6% deficit. I heard you say you could trim 300, 400,000 from that. I think that's what you said. Where are we, how are we handling the rest of it?
If you look at historically, and I'm knocking on wood, my revenues, the district's revenues come in about 1% or 1.5% higher than my budget. And my expenditures, district's expenditures come in about 1.5% lower than the budgeted amount. That creates over $4 million of fund balance. And therefore, we have traditionally done that. Hopefully, we get some windfall. We've gotten PlanCom windfall before. We've gotten the Lockheed Martin windfall. So we've had some windfalls like that help us out, but I'm not expecting anything.
Yeah, but those windfalls, we typically, they were a ship on the horizon. We knew they were out. They were coming to port sometime.
Yeah.
We don't have any, you stand at the shore now, there are no ships out there.
All he's counting on now is roundabout error and his very precise numbers. Okay.
And a consistency in those differences, which you don't know that you're gonna get.
I hope I
Right.
get it. I only gotta get them for one more year.
It only works.
So let's just be clear, you're not asking us to agree to a 2.4% tax increase. You just want to make sure that we're comfortable with this discussion, you presenting it at the next meeting, and that we can accept, the board can accept that budget.
That's preliminary.
Budget, that preliminary budget, right. I personally don't have any problem with maintaining the adjusted appropriations and how you're managing that. And of course, going back to the administration, those last two bullet items for me are really no brainers. So does anyone else have an issue with anything on that slide? Okay.
And you do understand the 600,000 out of there. When you think about fund balance, before we even talk about what we do in operation to move the money over, there's another 2.7 million that we're using to pay the debt service, the future debt service.
So the thing is that you want another 600, you want to put the 600 back, and as a board, we like to put the X 100,000 back.
$1 million.
For the other people. So, well, maybe it's not. But it's certainly,
It's a chunk.
So I'm not gonna put $1 million there because I think it would have got us to sulfide something. That's what I originally wanted. And now I know we put 600, so just give me credit for.
Right, I remember that. You wanted to bring down that number for a few years because you
And then
had the 2.9 million that we spent over time.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone's okay with proceeding with the preliminary budget.
Yes.
As it is. Any other thoughts or comments of the board? Okay.
We took notice that you want the elementary technology, and we're going to consider that strongly. And I think it's not just you three. I think everyone around here really would like to see that still.
Okay, we have two other budget, can we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, we have two other budget items, and we will do the public comment after the next.
Okay, the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we had our audit report presented, and we talked about what we're going to do with independent auditors. This was the end of their 3-year contract, and we entertained a proposal from them. Since that time, I was introduced to Michael Booth. He reminded me of a military guy, I will tell you. Carl is much more talkative than me, but if you read his credentials, he would be the manager on the job. Carl would not be the manager of the job, so we would get a different set of eyes looking at our district. Yes. For 6 years, they did not move on price at all. This year, they moved 3% each of the 3 years. That includes not just the audit, it includes the single audit for our federal programs. And it also includes the agreed upon procedures with our tax collectors. So they go out to each of our local tax collectors, and they don't do a full audit. They agree upon procedures. They take a conflict between ledgers and make sure everything ties in and there's proper documentation. Things are billed properly, and they do things like that. So they have brought this to me. I'm actually impressed with the person that they brought to manage the job. And you can see he's got quite a bit of experience. I'm asking if you want to do this or if you want to go out for another audit. I will tell you, the financial statements and the footnotes, they're better than I've seen. And they are getting our report done by the deadline for Emma and the SEC with our bond issue, so we're not ever no longer in technical default at all.
Any comments?
For me, so I'm looking at a few things. I think when we met last, and I had asked that if you wanted to stay with them, they had to have a second person, a different person in the first chair. And I think with in the interim, with your announcement of your intention to retire, and how impressed you were with this documentation, I don't know that I would want to change entirely to get somebody in who may not be the standards in the shape that Bob has expected them to be. So that we would have to deal with that, because Gail will still be staying with it. And, Gail, you have a high level of confidence with these people as well, and she's going to be working as well through that transition period. So for me, this makes sense. It accommodates. Thank you. This accommodates what I asked for. So I'm good with that.
Mike?
I'm looking at you, I'm looking at my finance guy here to just for opinions. I'm with Jerry on this in terms of.
Mike, sir, well, first of all, the financial statements are great. The timely filings with Emma and the SEC are vital.
Mm-hmm.
There are other districts that are not enjoying that luxury. So, but Jerry, your point was exactly my point to Bob this morning. And simply, I don't really want to rock the boat on something that's working well in a transition year, right, for Bob. It's just it's not a curveball we need to throw into it. So I'm absolutely comfortable with it, to answer your question. Denise, do you have any thoughts? No.
Well, so,
Thank you.
Good.
We said that would take a while. And by the way, they're taking 3%. They're only taking 3% on the core. They're not taking 3% on the audit of the two other audits, the supplemental audits, federal programs that they're not taking for interest.
This is a property repository seal. It's a property in Wrightstown Township. I'm not going to get into all of it. Hasn't paid their taxes since 2013. Very small property. I think the assessed value is under $2,000. The payer, I guess, is not around anymore, the owner. So the county went to a repository sale. They're getting all of $502 for the sale. We have to approve it or agree to it. If you see that we have, over those 5 years or whatever it is, $745.26 of tax. And then with the penalty and interest, it's $971. The county municipal taxes, interest and fees are $1,143.77. It is not a big deal. I would like to have an owner have this that's going to pay their future taxes, and we can write off the portion of the $745. We are going to get a prorated amount from the $500, so we could get $200 or $300 from it. This is an immaterial event to us, other than we'll get this property back on the tax rolls and we'll start getting a small amount of revenue. It's a no-brainer. I just want to bring it to you.
But you do need board action on it at the
Yes.
next
Need
meeting.
board
So
action on it.
does anyone have an issue with it being on the agenda for the next meeting? Would that be a consent agenda item or?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I think everything you did tonight, you're going to do is
Well, I'm gonna have the,
well, the tax discussion has to be, the 2.4 you have.
yeah, but no, the timekeeping system is from a holdover from last meeting because we didn't have a contract. So that is gonna be something that I'm gonna put not as a regular motion.
Correct.
You may want to go to executive session for that, and Rob was aware of that.
Okay. But everything else, I think you're gonna cover.
You're good. Okay, anything else you need to cover? No. Okay, well, any other board comment before we go on the public? Okay, open up the public comment.
Yes. In light of this facility.
Nancy, we know who you are, but can you just state your name?
My name is Nancy Carroll. I live in the center of Junkie. Jewish Junkie. So,
Go ahead, please.
I don't think we can keep doing a lot of the things that we're doing with facilities because of nurses. any money. I don't believe, every kid has a seat right now. Maybe some schools are tighter than others. Redistricting should take care of that. I don't think we should be building an additional 6 classrooms nowadays at Wrightstown. And I think we should merge Wrightstown with Newtown and save the money that we would save as the merger. And make Wrightstown like K1 and 2, and Newtown 3, 4, 5, and 6. We did that here. We're good now. It worked well. You only need one principal. You may only need one music teacher. You may only need one, whatever. And I don't think we can have a school district that has 90%, goes for 90% capacity. That's a lot of empty seats. And I think we have to think about those costs and how we can get them down. Because now it's not just the $600,000, it's now far back. We have to push Salt Limestone renovation. And I don't think it's fair to Salt Limestone and the schools that need work, that we're doing all this work at schools that don't even have kids to put in them. There's 240 elementary students who live in Wrightstown Township. And all the taxpayers are supplementing their being a K-6 because they want to be a K-6. And I also think, I mean, I never thought I'd get up and say this in my entire life, but I think that in situations where we're going to be won over before we split a section, we get like an aid or do something else and not split the sections. We have to think about, and it's a personnel business, and we have to think about how we can more efficiently run our schools. And maybe we need a committee to do that. But I really don't think we should be building seats that the only way we can fill them is to bring young children up to fill them. Because unless the demographer gives us something else different. And I'm hoping we'll get something from him before you vote for that one.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, if nothing else, meeting adjourned.